I just love this time of year and the inspiration from the seeded plants, the stark trees, the wind, the winter skies, and the muted tones, and how the unique beauty of these seeded plants can offer incredible potential for creating organic, authentic marks. Connecting to nature fosters a mindfulness and can spark creativity, which I have been really needing these days. And I love how these elements can translate into unique marks for my art as I am influenced by my environment. I call it sky, rock, and water. And maybe these elements will influence you. Hello and welcome to this week's video. So this time of year, as I've said in the introduction and the images and short videos that you've seen, this is the area that I live in Ontario, Canada. And our area has just gone through, and we're lucky to miss it, a major storm. So the clouds, the skies are so wintry and very early for this time of year because it's only November. So I meant to start and collect these plants earlier in the season while it was late fall and there was still some color. But I absolutely adore the muted tones of this year and this time of year and the starkness. So this is a wild plant that grows in my backyard. I do not know the name of it, but I'm thinking the fuzzy ends and just the pattern might make a really interesting mark. So I'm only going to use pieces of these because I want to keep experimenting. So I'll just move that to the side. This is yarrow that I grow in my garden. Some tall grasses, so I'll just use a few of those for today. And all the seeds are falling on my cartridge paper. That's what I'm using today because this is the first time, really, which is amazing, that I've used objects from nature for my mark making. And I've wanted to do this for so long. Last week's video, if you didn't see it, and my voice is still wonky, by the way, but I'm slowly getting better. And thank you, everyone, for the well wishes. I meant to use the feather, and I realized at the end I didn't even use it, so I'm going to try that today. Here's some other grasses. I'm really excited about how this will make a mark. And my garden is full, so I have lots of resources. These are the purple flowers that grow out of the hosta. We all have lots of hosta. And I would love to hear about the plants because we are subscribers. You are a very diverse audience, and I would love to see or to know, I'm sure we would love to share what you have used, if anything, in your own area. This is this purple flower, which I still don't know if it's wild or not, if it's invasive or not, but it suddenly started growing in my garden. So I left it there just because I liked it. I don't know. So I'm just going to use a branch of it, but I have lots more. The Rebecca, or the brown-eyed Susans. I have a mixture. I've transplanted some wild ones in my area and just put them. They were like across the road if you've take note of the pictures, but they're not growing anymore. And I know they may be a biennial, so I'm not sure. So I'm really liking or wondering how this bud will make a mark. And last but not least, the butterfly weed, which opens up and seeds just like milkweed. I'm thinking the points, I'm loving the silk of the seeds. I just would love, I'm not going to dip them in paint or anything. I just love how they look. They're so delicate, ready to be taken on a journey, sort of like what we're doing. So I'm just going to clean this up and we'll start seeing what kind of marks we're going to get. So I'm using cartridge paper. I've had a roll of this in my studio for a long time, and I absolutely love the yellow, the yellowish aging that is going on with it. And as you can see, it's fairly thick. It's a drawing paper, but they're in great big sheets. So I decided, well, I want to just make marks, but I want a lot of open space. That's sort of what I'm thinking will look good or feel good. Not look good, feel good. And so I'm going to use each one on a separate piece of paper and then bring them here together and see what happens. And then, so this will be part 1. So this will be a part 2 or part 3 video series. And the next ones will, once I discover some marks that I really like, if I do, I'm going to use different papers and with some imagery from the, similar to the images or the videos that you've seen, the textural areas, and echo that essence of, or the feel of this landscape. So it's an abstract kind of, it's not narrative. I'm just going to use some imagery, but I'm going to embed it in the layers. And this is sort of an experimental beginning of the course that I am creating that will be coming in the new year. So stay tuned. And if you're not on my email list, please consider joining. And as I progress more into a pathway of using nature as my inspiration, I think what I find might be really cool. So that's the plan. So I'm just going to use these smallish square pieces of paper. You can just use copy paper. You can use anything for your initial experimentations. So we call this explore. And I'm in the process of developing, going further. I'm adding one more part of the process, which is connect. So it's connect, explore, play, discover. And it's, of course, our voice, our authenticity that we're looking for, but also our connection to our inside, our intuition, and then going from inside out. And let's see what happens. So on the side, I have some black Mars fluid Liquitex. I've added water to it because I want it to be fluid. I'm not sure if I know I don't want it to be thick because I want the paint to pick up the nuances of these objects from nature. And in this container, I have waterproof Indian ink. I'll show you the brand. It's just black velvet, India ink. I've not used a lot of brands. I would also love to get an indigo if I wanted to go into more of a blue series. I'm also going to, at first, I want to compare lines with my very fine brush with what might happen with these. I don't know, but I'll leave that to the side. And I've also have some Aquafine acrylic ink that I will put in a little container right here. And I just love to use leftover applesauce containers or dip containers. Now this one I'm just going to fill up the container here a little bit. I'm not going to add water. I just want to see what the difference might be. But I need enough in there for dipping. So I think that'll do. So I'm going to practice some different ways of using these materials. I think I'm going to start with this one, which is the Brown-Eyed Susan or the Rebecca. And I think I'm going to try the three different paints here, ink and paint, and see what happens. So this is just the acrylic ink, and I'm just going to dip it in. And I'm going to twist as I go. Oh, I'm really liking that. So now I realize some more ink. And I really believe, see, so the seed pod makes this beautiful thick line. Wow. Very neat. Let's try the same one, and I'm going to dip it in the paint and see what happens. So that was the ink, and I'm going to write notes, of course. Okay, so there seems to be, I'm really liking that, it's very similar, but since, so now I've done circular, now I want to try different directions. And now it's dripping. It's almost like a brush. And now that the ink's on there, it's gone soft a little bit. So this is where you could play music. I could, but I won't because it's a video for you. But if I was just working alone, I want to slow down and really capture the nuances of this little item. So now I'm going to try the India ink, which is this one right here, or that waterproof ink. Now I've added water to it, and I'm glad I did, because, yes, see, it's very thin. While these lines are very thick and the paint is raised, while the ink here is soaking right into the paper to get more of that inky feeling. It's more subtle, subdued. Really liking how it's like a little brush. Very cool. Okay. So this is acrylic ink. Whoop. This is the paint. Paint black, Mars black. And that's just the pure ink. That's the acrylic ink. And it was the... Okay. So I might attach that. I might just... what do we call it? The pod. Okay. So I'm really liking those lines. Let's the grass. So I'm going to use the ink right away and just dip it in. Oh, it's soaked right in. Let's give it another dip. So isn't that interesting? The grass hairs, or whatever these you would call these, on the ends are almost like water resistant. So let's dip it in the paint instead. Now it's very drippy. And I'm just gonna keep on, I'm not gonna give up on it yet. There's gotta be a way. And the hairs are really making a fine, fine speckle, I would call it. And as they go through the lines, let's see if I just do something else. Okay, now let's try the end. If that isn't working, I'm loving how fine this is. Very interesting for some very subtle line if you wanted to do it near the end or the last phases. But I'm liking how when you drag it through a puddle of ink or paint, whatever you're using, very interesting. Now, since it's maybe dried, I'm going to try one more time in the paint. So I'm just adding more pressure. Wow, very interesting. Let's compare them. So, very different in energy. Very cool. And I really like, since it's so subtle, the blackness. So I'm just going to say grass. And this one was, I'll just say ink and paint. Okay, let's move on to another one. So I'm going to get multiple lines, and that's what I'm going for. So I'm dipping it in the paint, so I'm going to remember. And so using the whole page and maybe some open space. I like that. Definitely, this is a keeper. Okay, very cool. And if you want to record, you could probably just lie the piece there, and then I could take a picture, which will be in my video, and I'll probably take a image from the video itself, so I remember what this is. Very cool. Okay. Here's a long grass, which I have a feeling will be very different from this one. Now, I'm only going to dip the end in, and I'm going to go with the paint, and I'm just going to drag it around. Now I'm using my opposing hand for less control. Oh, I'm liking this. Okay, let's do some more. So what I'm doing is I'm responding to what's happening if it goes sideways, and then I'm just dragging it around in figure eights just to see what else I can do. Love that. So I'll just call this the long, narrow grass. And once these dry, you can just keep them in a little folder or take a picture on your phone, and maybe even print them out on a single page, and you've got a resource. You've got a record of, okay, I need some marks. What do I want to use? Oh yeah, let's use those from nature. Okay, 2 more left. So I'm just going to shorten the stem of this one, and I'm going to take this one off. Get rid of the seeds here, because I want to stamp this one, or at least that's what I'm thinking. And I'm going to take some other parts of it. Very different marks. So if you wanted just to, that's okay, but I can get that mark with an art tool. So I'm looking for unique marks. What about spinning it? So this is where you really slow down and you see, you really push what you can do. You know, and you're probably, and I might, you might trigger some ideas that you might do, or how you might use your objects from nature. I'm really liking as there's less paint, like a dry brush effect. And once this is dry, I could just sort of staple that or tape that to this page, and then I know that's what I've used. Very interesting. Okay. I know it's not a plant, but I want to try the feather. I'm going to use the feather in the ink and the feather in the paint. So let's start with the ink. So I'm feeling, I like that. I'm liking how it's more watered down. And the diagonal directions overlapping is very interesting. Now let's see what the paint will do. Go this way. So you can get all of this thick, thin, ribbon-like lines using the feather. Now, is there another way I could use this feather? Those are very interesting because they're slightly curved. Cool. Let's see the end. So, look at the contrast, the difference. I'm liking this. Thinking of those differences. I'm going to keep going vertically all the way down. I'm going to be, this is making me think of asemic writing or systematic writing. Symbols of some kind, but writing, meaning. But the end made me think of writing because of the old feather and pen. I'm liking how you can get quite a variety of line here. Okay. And I like how much darker it is versus the lighter gray in the background. So that's fabulous. So, feather. And last but not least, so I'm not really going to end up using the big page today. I'll continue experimenting, and we'll see where that goes. Now, how will I use this? I don't want to use the whole thing. I just want to use one of the pods, maybe the end. I'm loving that silk. Is there a way to use it? I think I'm going to try some. Oh, let's try something. Oh, again, so the silk is falling from the seed, but I think I have enough of it. Interesting. Very subtle. Let's try this with the ink first. So it's also the direction of your lines, thickness, lightness, the energy. I'm liking this. I didn't see this. That's just how I responded to this seed pod from a butterfly weed plant. And I just needed to go vertical. Something with the end there made me think, wow, this is really amazing. So now I'll go in different directions. So the curl and that curved part are reacting to the surface and creating, this is the ink. Okay, now I'll dip it in the paint. Temperatures are different. This is warmer, this is cooler. Very interesting. You can get such extreme differences. The drawing element is really great with this. Oh, I know what I want to do. I've not done dashes or anything like that. So once I am past the explore stage, then I'll start playing with repetition on an entire, like on a copy or on my deli wrap paper. So then I can create some really interesting collage papers using these. But after I go through them, I need to experiment a lot more. This is just to give you some ideas to get going with objects from nature. And so in summing this up, I've been using, these are plants commonly found in gardens, seed heads from grasses, cone flowers. I did have daisies, but they were long gone. If I started this idea earlier, I would have had some seeds that would have gone and some fresh, which would have been a very interesting combination. Branches, and the dried stems. And these are all the dried elements that I love. So it depends what kind of lines you make. So stick with them. And that's what I'm learning to do. Stick with your objects a little longer than you would usually. And then I'm dipping them, dragging across, blotting, dashing, using repetition. And these marks can add such depth, subtle depth, to our work, especially the way we're going to be putting things together. And my plan is to use images, repetition, and the essence, capturing the essence, the feel. My work is all about the feel. And the reflecting water this time of year, the sparkles, the starkness, and the subtle hues, the subdued tones. are really have a big influence on me this time of year. So what kind of plants or natural elements influence your work? And that's what this week's video is about. I'm really loving what's happening on this page. So you'll probably, on your next walk, start looking at things and collect things as you go. And you'll find your studio or your workspace will really fill up quickly. But I love putting those things in vases and having that influence all around, bringing the outside in. And it just feels great. And I really needed that today to get outside, looking at nature in a different way. So if you're new here, thank you for watching. I hope you watched it to the end. And don't forget to give my 5-day free course a try, because it sets you up for your intuitive art journaling practice. Because this is a practice. This is an ongoing thing that I'm developing, and you're on the journey with me. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and I will see you in part 2 when we start putting some of these elements, creating the collage, and then creating some artwork. So it'll probably be part 3. So I'll see you in the next video. Don't forget to like and subscribe because it helps me. And as you've noticed, I forgot to let you know, I am at a new number. So please hit that like button so I can hit 10,000 subscribers. It's taken a lot longer than other channels, but that's okay. I'm here for the journey, and I'm just going to keep going, one layer at a time. See you next week.